you doing? It's the Wrestling Mat. It's a Tuesday. Or whenever the heck you're watching it. As long as you're watching it, I appreciate you. Welcome into the show. We have a lot to get to today. Coming off of one of the more memorable Raws of the year, a 3-hour show. For all the talk we have had recently of, oh God, SmackDown's going to 3 hours. You want to see how to put on a 3-hour show and do it the right way? That was last night's Raw. That was a masterclass in putting a show together. Kudos to everybody involved in that show last night. From the start of it to the end of it. I don't think they missed many minutes that mattered last night. I think they got every bit out of that show. To the point that when I do this show, and welcome in and hello, sometimes it's, I want to talk about the really good stuff or the stuff that really missed. The middle stuff is admittedly not always that interesting. And as I looked at the show today and was putting together what we're going to talk about, I was like, wow, we have a lot to get into. Am I going to be able to get into everything? And if I need to, I'll take this into tomorrow's discussion as well. But I'd love to hear from you guys in the chat. What would you like to hear about today? What did you think of the show last night? We're going to get into Jey Uso being the new Intercontinental Champion, how you make that moment matter so much more, which is exactly what they did last night. I want to talk about, as we had there on the ticker, we've put on our social media at WrestlingMat23, what should be the main event of Bad Blood? Coming off of Drew McIntyre's promo last night, where for the second week in a row, we had a participant in that match promising blood. And as Drew said last night, lots of it. Does that mean it has to main event Bad Blood? Or will it be Cody and Roman taking on Solo and Jacob Fatu? We will get to that today. I said yesterday I wanted to talk about the New Day. Man, did they take some really interesting steps forward last night. And I am thrilled to see this guy right here. Woods. Really getting to flex the muscle that he has as a performer. And I think we're going to only see more of that. And I am so interested and invested in where that is going. We'll get into that today. We're going to talk about what I think is the most fun thing in pro wrestling right now. Bronson Reed and Braun Strowman, which was a big part of the show, to open the show, throughout the show, and where we're going next week. And to, I guess, bring it down a little bit, we will talk about Vince McMahon's statement on his now reactivated Twitter. I'll tell you a little bit about that and who used to run that account. And the fact that apparently, according to the Puck newsletter, John Orland, he was trying to buy the Netflix stock. And speaking of that, this Thursday, right here at the WrestlingMatShow.com, we are going to be reacting live to the Mr. McMahon Netflix series. At least one episode of that. But you have to be a Matt member at the Matt Camper level or the Matt event level. That is Thursday at 7 p.m. Eastern. If you want to be part of that, there it is. Matt Camper level, Matt event level. Members-only videos for those in those levels and those tiers. You will be with me on Thursday, 7 p.m. Eastern, for the Mr. McMahon Netflix documentary reaction coming from me, someone who was there when they were filming this thing, someone who was literally down the hall from where they filmed this thing. I'll be telling you all about it, what you may not know about the documentary, and so much more. And I was talking to somebody this morning about it, and I said, I'm not as interested in what Vince says, because I'm sure based on the reaction of his tweet and the story that he tried to buy, like he's not going to come across well. Shocker. I want to see how everybody else comes across in this thing. The people who are still active or around the wrestling world. That, I think, will be interesting. How many of those people are concerned? Someone was asking when were they filming. This has been done, I think it's at least 2 years ago. Now, listen, of what I know, they have done, I'm sure, this was just on site. and we'll get into this, but they were filming some things on site. Obviously, you're not going to get everybody in Stamford, Connecticut, and you'll go to places, and there's all the big names, and you'll go to their house or whatever. But this is years ago that they were filming these things, some of these interviews. Because think about it, Vince has been out for a while, multiple times. So we'll get into that a little bit later on the show, but I'm going to be reacting to the Netflix documentary by the time we do that show Thursday here at 7 Eastern. 7 p.m. Eastern, by the way, on Thursday, for the Matt members at the Matt Camper level and Matt Event level. I will have seen every episode. So I will be making a point. It hits Netflix tomorrow, I believe worldwide, but I'm not sure. But at least domestically here in the United States, I will be watching all of that, and a lot of reaction, I'm sure, will be coming across the entire pro wrestling landscape about that. But you can already see, people trying to get out in front. So we'll be talking about that a little bit more later on in the show. But definitely a big reaction to all of that. A very special episode of the Wrestling Mat, 7 p.m. Eastern on Thursday night. And if you are a Matt member, don't forget, you can order, anybody can, but if you're a Matt member, you get a discount at ProWrestlingTees.com/TheWrestlingMat. If you're a member, go to our community page on TheWrestlingMatShow.com on our YouTube page, and you will get a discount. And if you're not a Matt member, but you still want the merch, go over to ProWrestlingTees.com/TheWrestlingMat. Go get yourself a t-shirt. Hey, if you have the shirt, because I know some people have bought it already, please send us a picture. Tweet us at WrestlingMat23. Send us an whatever. Post it on Instagram, post it on Twitter. Hit me up at the Matt Camp. Would love to know what you think of it once you get it in hand. I know some people, it probably is coming, deliveries are hitting probably this week or so, or the next week or so. So let us see it when you get it. We'd really appreciate that, sharing that, as you could share this show, as we would appreciate that as well. Any support is helpful. If you're listening on the podcast version, yes, we do have this as a podcast. We've been doing it now for, I think, the last 16 episodes. And if you don't know, yes, you can get the show as a podcast as well on the Believe Network. Subscribe wherever you get your podcast. Rate, review, and subscribe. If you're listening via the Believe Network, if you're listening as a podcast, come on over to TheWrestlingMatShow.com, because you'll get so much more. You can become a Matt member. You can subscribe for free. You can see past episodes. And if you're watching, whether it be live right now or after the fact, get it as a podcast as well. All of your support really helps, whatever that may be. And I realize some of you watch it and some of you just listen, or you do both. But subscribe to all the feeds, because it really helps the show, and that is something you can do for free. If you want to support a little bit more, head over to ProWrestlingTees.com/TheWrestlingMat. Become a Matt member here at TheWrestlingMatShow.com. Or send us a super chat during the show here. That always gets you to the front of the line. Hello to Nerdy Dude. What's going on? Good to be with you. He just said the documentary will be out tomorrow in Germany. I can't wait to watch it. So there you go. All right. So a lot of people. This is the strength of Netflix, and will be the strength of Netflix when Raw hits in January. A lot more people will be on the same timeline in terms of being able to watch it, I think, internationally. So that's going to be big for WWE. But thanks to everybody who's being here. As always, if you're watching live, hit us up in the chat. It's the most interactive pro wrestling show out there. Question we're asking, I'll ask it throughout the show here. What should be the main event of Bad Blood? And I'll get to that subject in a little bit, but I want to throw that question out to you guys. What should be the main event of Bad Blood? Now, the top two choices, I think, to me, are Drew and Punk inside Hell in a Cell, or Cody and Roman against Solo and Jacob Fatu. If you think it should be something else, certainly drop that in the chat as well. Hit us up in the comments below if you're watching after the fact. What should be the main event? We'll get to that. I want to let you guys kind of marinate on that a little bit, but let's start with how the show ended. The show ended with WWE making a moment, doing what I think they do best. When they're on their game, and they were on and have been on their game, but especially last night, I don't think people knew, and I mean this in the best way possible, who was walking out with the Intercontinental Championship last night. I think wrestling sometimes, no matter what the company, can be too predictable, even if it's the right story to tell. I think SummerSlam, right? Felt like the whole Judgment Day turn was going to happen. And it did. And they have parlayed that into 2 matches. Well, they parlayed that into the mixed tag at Berlin. And they've parlayed that into 2 matches happening at Bad Blood. But I think people saw it coming. And I think they executed it solidly. But it felt like it was going to happen. And they did. Finn cost Priest, and Dom cost Rhea, and all that stuff. And we got to, I think, where a lot of people expected to get to. As a result, you have a super babyface Rhea Ripley. You have a very over Damian Priest. You have them together. And they executed what they wanted to execute. But I don't think it surprised anybody. I think the best turns shock people. Mariah May. The Shield. Things of that, even Austin siding with Vince at the end of WrestleMania 17. Sometimes it doesn't work, and sometimes it does. But the shock of a turn, I think, is what makes the turn. If it's too obvious, even if it's executed correctly, I don't think it has as much juice behind it. But that's what they wanted to do with the Judgment Day, and they've gotten Rhea and Priest at this level they want to be at, and it's setting up multiple matches, and that's a win. So Jey and Braun comes back to the idea, and I've talked about this with some of you in the past. There has been a lot of people that have pushed back against the idea of these long title reigns because I don't think it's the idea of a long title reign. I think it's the idea of so many of them happening at the same time. And I brought this up. I think I've talked about it here. But there are times when we would get notes on the announce team of what to say or what not to say or to emphasize. And typically, at least during the Vince time, you knew it was coming from Vince. And leading into, I want to say, Brock Roman WrestleMania in Dallas a few years back. The greatest wrestling match of all time. Blah, 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 blah. Champion versus champion. Winner takes all. And I think the time after that, because that led into Hollywood and all that stuff, and Vince was still kind of around, or back around. We were told at some time during that year span, whatever it was, we only talk about Roman's days as champion. And this is a time where Bianca's on a massive run. This is a time where Gunther's on his massive run. Yeah, we had multiple long title reigns at the same time. And we were just focused on Roman's numbers. So I would have to find ways to still talk up those other long, lengthy title reigns, but talk about them in a different way. And I was annoyed by that. But I also understand why there can be some malaise about that. If they're all happening at the same time, maybe it's not as special. Now, Gunther's was special. And Rhea's was special. Hell, she only lost it because she got hurt. And obviously, Roman's is an all-time reign, if not the most important reign ever. And you could make that argument that it is the most important reign ever. But when you have all of that going on at the same time, and there is a feeling of, well, we know it's coming. We know it's coming. Gunther's not in any trouble losing that World Heavyweight Championship because you look at how he's been booked. And it wouldn't make sense. Cody is now going to go a pay-per-view without even defending that title. And because of the story that was told with him, a first-time world champion babyface with a story that they're trying to tell you is 50 years old, going back to Dusty. I understand that. I understand making Rhea an absolute killer, having her beat Charlotte and then go on the run she went on, and she was going to beat Becky, and it was a passing of the torch moment. Sure. I understood, dethroning the Usos and doing so with Sami and Kevin because it makes whoever beats the person with the long title reign a bigger deal. So we had talked about that, as related to Gunther and the trickle-down effect of it goes to Sammy, and Sammy gets the win and the big win, and he defends it, and then Braun beats Sammy, and Braun beats Sammy in 5 minutes. So now you have Braun Breaker as the champion who beat the guy who beat Gunther. And as I said, Braun has that in his back pocket of, hey, I beat the guy who beat you, and I also beat you in NXT. And they can go to that story. And as we are now wonderfully seeing on WWE television, history matters. History should matter. It shouldn't have to be something that is used for storytelling here and there. History is the reason Kevin Owens had that look on his face on Friday. History is the reason that when Kevin Owens was holding a chair and they framed it as such, you knew what he was capable of. Now, they don't have to rush that. They can get to what may or may not be a heel turn for Kevin Owens. Maybe that is too predictable. Maybe Cody does understand what Kevin says, and he is talked into it. Or maybe Cody talks Kevin into being part of a War Games team alongside Roman Reigns. Maybe that will be the case, and we don't know. And I bring that around because Jey Uso last night was walking in to the main event against a young, up-and-coming, well-booked Intercontinental heel champion in Braun Breaker, who has run through everybody in his path since coming to Monday Night Raw, who has been booked excellently, who now feels like more of the guy that they want him to be than he was in NXT as a babyface world champ. And Jey beating Braun was a very credible victory. Braun losing last night did not hurt him in the least. And anybody complaining about that is just complaining to complain. Because if you really look at the landscape of how both of those guys have been presented, yes, one's a babyface, yes, one's a heel. But if you look at how consistently they've been booked and the positions that they are put in, they're at the same level. I don't care that Jey has 14 or 13 years or whatever. Some people hit quick. Goldberg hit quick. You went with that. Sometimes that works. Sometimes you get a Ryback situation and it hits quick, and then you book yourself into a corner, which is what happened with him. Braun Breaker has hit quick. Braun Breaker hit quick in NXT. I think he had struggles at times. I think he came back around. But now they have put him in a position to do what he did to Ricochet, to battle Sammy, to now Jey Uso. He's hit quick. It's all about perception. It's not about years. Some people need that story. Some people have to tell that story. Some people have the ups and downs. Cody Rhodes didn't hit quick. He's the guy now, but he didn't hit quick. They probably wanted him to because of his last name. Hell, he walked out with Dusty Rhodes for his first match against Randy Orton on Monday Night Raw. And there were ups and downs. And there were mustaches and mirrors and Rhodes Scholars and Stardust and the Indies and New Japan and Ring of Honor. Go watch some of those Cody things in Ring of Honor. Go watch Cody Rhodes and Minoru Suzuki for the Ring of Honor World title. It's garbage. It stinks. It didn't all go well there. But obviously, you see Cody continue to strive on. It's not all perfect. It's part of the journey. Going to AEW, hey, that all didn't work either. And that's part of the journey. And obviously, when he came back, he was ready-made. Then, to be the American Nightmare WWE superstar. There's a journey there. Jey Uso's been going through that journey. There was a time when the Usos were initially brought up. And then they went away for a while. Like they were up and they were something. And they kind of like dipped. And then they figured things out. And they added more to their entrance. And they had more personality. Because unfortunately, and luckily, this is not the case anymore. Especially for that family. Samoans were always booked the same. Oh, they're dangerous. They're savages. You know, you can't take them down. And I think the Usos got that presentation initially. But obviously, there's more to them. And we have learned that. And they did the Uso Penitentiary. And they had the feud with New Day. You know, I talked about that last week. Go back and watch that at thewrestlingmatchshow.com. I think it's one of the best Hell in a Cell matches of all time. By the way, Big E posted that match because, interestingly enough, they posted the full Usos New Day Hell in a Cell match on WWE's YouTube the other day. How about that? That could have easily been planned already. I know that. But it is there to now go watch if you don't have Peacock. But that's what the Usos went through. And that's what Jey went through. And then the story of what Jey has now become had to happen via the bloodline. Had to happen of him being main event Jey Uso. Of getting that singles push when the bloodline first started getting going and Roman's title reigns first started getting going. They had to do that. And he was the standout between the brothers. He needed to go through ups and downs. It didn't hit for, it's just the positioning. He was in great tag matches, but he was always connected to the family, connected to his father, connected to his brother, connected to Roman, connected to the bloodline. Second, you know, he was second fiddle. He was never the guy. And then when they got him over to Raw, and he was clearly by himself, he wasn't, because he was with Cody, and Cody brought him over. And then they were tagging. They were tag champs. And then it became about Jey. Now, Jey ended up doing stuff with Jimmy, and I think everybody knows that match didn't hit the way it should have. And we haven't seen Jimmy since. And Jey would go on to face Damian Priest and didn't win there. And whether it be Rikishi or fans of Jey or whatever, people wanted to see it happen. No, to answer a question I just saw, I do not think that Rikishi trying to get some clout off of his family, which he has been known to do. That is a very true statement. I don't think that changed anything. I believe I have more faith in WWE's booking right now than I ever did when I was working there. I have more faith in WWE's creative plans right now than I have since probably the Attitude Era. There's no more, and listen, you do have to change things sometimes, whether they're not working or there's injuries or whatever outside. They have a game plan right now. A lot of people are involved in making sure that game plan is being executed correctly. They have a good game plan. It's working. I believe that the game plan, and I could be wrong about this, was we're going with Jey. We're going with Jey right now as the Intercontinental Champion. Doesn't mean he's keeping it for 3 months. Doesn't mean he's keeping it for 6 months. Braun could win that thing back. Maybe Jey does get intertwined once again with Judgment Day, because he really wasn't last night. That was a very easy prediction to throw out there. Well, Judgment Day will get involved because he's gotten involved in their stuff with Damian and Rhea, so they'll get involved in his stuff. And what will happen? Okay, Braun will win, and Jey will then put his focus. He'll go into that story. Or Jey will have to then think about, he'll get recruited by Cody or whatever to be on their team for War Games. And instead, we got a main event that was presented as a big-ass deal throughout the night. They opened the show with those guys making their entrance. We'll get to the open of the show in a second. That of the other things that happened, because that was great. And you hyped it throughout the night. And Jey gets to make his big entrance. And they did the big championship. They built to that. I, as a wrestling fan of 35 years, who has seen everything, was invested because of how they built that last night. Hey, this is going to be a big deal. No matter what the finish is, they've built this up well. Let's keep reminding people throughout the show. We got this coming up. This is big. It's Jey Uso. You know he's Jey Uso. But, man, Braun Breaker. They built it up to make you believe, man, Braun's so good. There's no way. They almost played into the thought process of, well, he's a young champion, and look at all the other long reigns we have going on. I feel like they played into that of made people go, yeah, but it's Braun. Braun's not going to lose yet. Jay's got other stuff to do. Jay's got Bloodline stuff. He's got Judgment Day stuff. And it played into the match, and nobody got involved. And it was two guys going out there and having the best match. You could argue that was Jay's best singles match. You could argue that Braun Breaker just had his best match. And I'll tell you why. You listen and you watch the crowd. They didn't know who was going to win that match. They wanted Jey to win. And when Jey hit that spear and that splash the first time and Braun kicked out, typically, when a heel kicks out of that much big babyface stuff, the heel, by some way, is going to win. And they didn't do that. And they got the people to bite. That is beautiful pro wrestling, when you get them to bite. And they went back to it, and they had the spear on the outside and all that stuff, and Jey gets the win. And I know it was the right call because of how the show looked and sounded throughout the match and when the match was over. Because there was genuine happiness. Look at all the hands up. Look at all people standing. Look at them clapping. They didn't know if he was going to win. And then he did. That's what you want. That's the key. Was Cody Rhodes going to lose 2 years in a row at WrestleMania? It was Roman, so you weren't sure, but probably not. That's why I still think last year's WrestleMania was the right move to have Roman beat Cody, because people expected Cody to win, and he didn't, and they built that story up more, and it was built beautifully, and look what else we got out of it. We're going to get more out of it, as we saw on Friday, as we, may wonder about The Rock. But Jey Uso winning last night, going out into the crowd. Not that he should be called this, but that right now, if you had to pick a people's champion, he's in the conversation at least with Cody. And I'm going to go back to something I brought up recently. I think Rhino, I think Goldberg, and I think Braun Breaker have the best spears in pro wrestling, the most consistent spears in the history of pro wrestling, even if others have done it. Edge, Christian, Roman, Jey. I'm sure I'm missing others. However, people are conditioned to know that that is a big move for Jey. So when he hits it, they react accordingly. Even if it doesn't look as good as Braun's spear, they react accordingly. And that is a great example of it not being about the moves or the quality of the match. And I'm not like a knock the star ratings, because there are, I love to sit down and watch a great straight-up pro wrestling match. But I like to watch a pro wrestling match even more than I'm invested in. That I'm biting on stuff. That I on a 2 count. Jey got that last night multiple times. Braun got that last night multiple times. So it's not always about the art of wrestling in terms of, I should say, it is about the art of wrestling. Shout out to Cole Cabana. It's not about necessarily the beautiful, perfect execution of things. Hulk Hogan did this. He did this. He did this. He hit the boot. He hit a leg drop. He fired up and hit punches. He worked a different way in Japan for a reason. It worked. It's call and response. You're conditioned to know that's big. That matters. That's our guy doing his stuff. Ultimate Warrior was a god-awful wrestler. The people liked his entrance, and people like to watch him pump up, and people like to watch him with the tassels flying everywhere. You can have epic, excellent wrestling matches, and they can do well with a story behind them. Jey and Braun took people on a ride last night, and they arrived at a destination that people wanted to be there for. Jey is over because of Yeet. And I realize that doesn't connect with everyone, but it connects with a lot of people. And what have they done? They have pushed the hell out of that merch in blue and in pink and in sunglasses and in foam fingers and in 9,000 t-shirts, because that's what you do. And production has made Jey Uso into a bigger star by doing that crowd entrance, and that's our guy. That's what I've gotten from that. Jey is the man of the people. Cody's the world champion who looks like the face of the company and does shake all the hands and kiss the babies and sign the autographs, and yes. But I've always felt that Cody's presentation is not that of the people. Perfect suits, always looking good, hair good, title, saying all the right things. Jey is a bit grittier. Jey comes through the crowd. Jey feels like somebody you'd run into and he'd dap you up. There's more of a connection. Like Cody's presentation, not his words, his presentation is very heelish. Why do I connect to the guy who looks like that? That's not me. I don't wear a suit. I'm a wrestling fan like that. Why do I cheer for that guy? Now, Cody cares about the people, and they care about him, and they care about his family and his story, and that's why he is the uber babyface that he is. But that goes against how pro wrestling is supposed to work. And there will be a great Cody heel run at some point down the road. Cody will make a great heel top guy with a similar presentation that you just turn the knob a little bit the other way. Jey, though, there's more of an authentic connection with the fans. And by the way, that's not a knock on Cody. Like, I think Cody, to me, is doing everything you're supposed to do. And that's not a bad thing. I think Cody knows everything he's supposed to do. Not a bad thing. He's a pro's pro. I've talked Cody up. I'll always talk him up. You want a guy like that representing your company. 100%. And he knows that. And he embraces that. Jey's different. Jey is less polished in a good way. Jey's more fun. Think about that press conference with Jey and Cody. Jey might have had a couple that night. And Cody can be like that, but Cody's not going to present himself in such a loose way all the time. Cody says some wild stuff sometimes. It's Cody. As other wrestlers joke, there's a Cody lie and there's a lie and there's a Cody truth. He knows what he's doing in the smartest way possible. Jey just kind of does his thing. There's not polish to Jey. He says yeet. People react to that. He's going in that direction. It works. So they have something with Jey Uso that I think was leveled up last night in a very big way. And I want to give, I said it as I was watching this. I was watching with my fiance last night. And I said, if Jey's about to win, this is a huge spot for Joe Tessitore, who's done a very good job in a short period of time. But this is his first chance to really call a hallmark moment. And he nailed it. He nailed the near falls. He nailed the moment. He let the crowd react and shut up. He laid out when he was supposed to. He put the gravity of the situation into perfect context of he's had 6 chances to win a singles championship. He has not been able to do it. You told a good story there. And that's a simple thing. And that stuff did not happen enough under Vince. God, I used to have to work that stuff in on my own. And I heard Cole do it. And obviously that changed under Cole. And Cole, you could, Cole bringing up Stardom and Triple Tails and all this stuff. That was him being able to do that stuff. There's history. Use it. There's stats. Use them. It only adds to the story. So even Tessitore saying last night, man, he's had 6 chances. Can he win the big one? Braun's done it already. Forget 14 years of experience. Braun's done it. He's a 2-time NXT champion. He's already Intercontinental champion. The moment's not too big for him. Is it too big for Jey Uso? Should he not be called main event Jey Uso? And then he came through. It's like Peyton Manning getting the monkey off his back. Steve Young getting the monkey off his back. Winning that first Super Bowl. Phil Mickelson winning his first Masters 20 years ago. Any of that stuff. They're great, but can they win that big one? They played that up with Jericho, if you remember, with him and The Rock. Can't win the big one. Gets close. Can't do it. Then he did. Jey Uso won the big one for himself last night. And now we see where that story goes. Is he a weekly defender of the Intercontinental Championship? When does Braun, very likely, I would think, get a rematch, even though the rematch clause is out the window? When does that happen? Does the Judgment Day stuff get back involved? Does the Bloodline stuff get back involved? And I've seen a few of you say it so far in the comments. Hey, they don't have to rush Jey back into the Bloodline at all. And I tend to agree with that. He might be on his own path. And you know what? It might be better for Jey in a long-term vision to be on his own path and not go back to that stuff. That makes sense, actually. If you got what you got last night, maybe you just keep him over here. And you keep the Bloodline over here. And maybe down the road, you get back to that. But maybe Jey is not needed for the Bloodline Civil War. And I would even go as far to say, you tease it. And he goes, you know what? Oos, this is your battle now. It ain't mine. I've shed enough blood standing side by side and against this family. I'm not doing it anymore. I got this. I got the Intercontinental Champion. I got these people here. I got what I need. I've done enough for this family. It's my time now. When Jackie Redmond went into the crowd last night after the show, if you haven't seen it, it's a fun moment. and interviewed Jey, they were doing "You Deserve It." He jokingly said, "I deserve it." That should be his mindset. It's about me. And I have the support I need now. I don't need to deal with any of that stuff. I had success with the Bloodline. I had trying moments. I had some of the worst moments of my wrestling career as part of that family. You'll always be family, but right now, I'm on my own path. I like that. I think that has Jey standing up for himself. Speaking of Jey's history, the New Day story has me extremely interested. Kofi and Woods, both being stand-up guys, both saying, hey, I was wrong. No, I was wrong. And Kofi bringing back the Bootios. Kofi bringing back a Bootio. And here's your trombone. No. Right here. And I loved, God, Woods on display last night. Hey, we don't have to go backwards. We did that stuff when we were on top. We were riding high. We were having fun. We're not right now. We're losing. And Kofi, being the ultimate babyface good guy friend that he is, goes, you know what? You're right. You make the call. You quarterback this team. And when I heard that before their match and before what happened with Rey Mysterio, I went, this has always been it. Kofi was the established guy. Big E looked like he might be the guy. Woods was always the third man. Woods, when that whole thing started, was kind of more in the managerial role. He also got hurt early, I think, in that run, but it was always about Kofi and E doing a lot more of the work. And Woods was out there in one of the greatest moments in pro wrestling history when Kofi won the title. And so is he, of course. And that's always been the New Day mantra. When one of us wins, we all win. And they believe that wholeheartedly, for real. And then E wins. And they're both there for him. And they're happy for him. And I know how genuine that was. And what did Woods get eventually? He became King of the Ring. They didn't do shit with it. He became fodder for Roman, as you remember, or may not remember. But he wanted that. He always wanted to be King of the Ring. And if you watch, anytime Woods gets those opportunities, he makes the most of it, or as much as he can, even if he's not going to win. And he had shots at the IC title. He talked about how important that was. But he's never been the guy in his own group. And they're playing into that now. And their tag match didn't go the way they wanted to last night and all that, and Woods loses. And then him and Kofi are, and then Rey comes up. And Woods gets into it with Rey. And I love the fact that they changed a match. Hey, he's supposed to face Finn Balor next week. Nope. You know what? You got something to say? You don't want to respect me? You can't just sit and listen for a second? Let's do it. And now you have Xavier Woods in between two of the most consistent baby faces in wrestling history, arguing with them. And if that's a heel turn or a hint at a heel turn, yeah, that look what you're doing. You're going to put longtime babyface Xavier Woods against forever babyface, Rey Mysterio. Yes, I know there were little times here and there, but Rey's an ultimate babyface. Kofi's an ultimate babyface. Woods, as part of the New Day, has been one of those babyfaces. But now you're going to put an angry, maybe a little bitter, maybe a little down on himself Xavier Woods up there against Rey Mysterio. To what? To prove himself. And they made a point to reference that in November, 2 months away, it will be 10 years of the New Day. I do think Woods will lose next week. I wonder what they do with Kofi and Gable as it relates to that. Does Kofi get a win next week? Although I don't think you want to beat American Made right now. But does Kofi get a win next week? Does Kofi lose next week because he went out there by himself? Hey, you got to get ready for your match. Stay back here. I could see that conversation happening. Kofi goes out first. Woods is going to go with him. Hey, you got a big match against Rey Mysterio. You got to stay back there. Okay. And then he loses. And then Woods goes out for his match. Hey, I got to do this by myself. Okay, and he loses. The New Day breakup, and I say that as a very general term because I don't know if it'll ever happen. And I don't know if it's the right move. But there's never even been close to a tease. Not even for a second. And they've shot that down left and right. But if you run into a pattern where you're not really doing anything of note, your wrestling matches, you getting title match, but there's no development there. There's no steps forward. Yeah, I think the New Day has hit that spot. And it happens to everybody. You got to reinvent. Now you wonder. Do you go with Big E reuniting them? Is Kofi the one to turn? Is Woods the one to turn? What if Big E tried to reunite them and Woods attacked him? Man, that's really going with Woods. If you have E reunite them, what does that look like after that? Is it just for that moment? Do they pick up more steam? It's not like the New Day need to win the tag titles again. I don't think that's a bit. I think Woods needs to have his. I think reuniting them is something I talk about all the time, is not about, and they've done this within the New Day already, is not about breaking them up. But maybe it is the fact that Woods hasn't hit the level that Kofi has and hasn't hit the level that Big E has. And as he referenced last night, hasn't hit the level that Rey has. That is eating at him now. Now it's come back to the forefront. He could make the argument of, Kofi, you could be cool with this. You've been world champ. Rey, you could be able to handle these ups and downs. You've been world champ. You've hit the top. What have I done on my own? I've won King of the Ring. And you know what? Even Kofi was right by my side for that. Maybe it's Woods realizing he has to look in the mirror and put it on him. But at what cost? And I'm invested for that reason. You could break them up. It would be a shocking moment. You could have E reunite them. It could be a beautiful moment. We're on the ride now. And I'm interested. I'm invested. And kudos to Woods and Kofi for handling it very well. And I'm happy to see that this story has been put in motion. We'll get now back to the question I asked on social media today at WrestlingMat23, where you can follow us on Instagram and Twitter. We put at the beginning of the show. It's on the title of the show. What is the real main event of Bad Blood? You have the culmination of a 10-month, nearly 1-year story happening in the absolute perfect place it should happen, inside Hell in a Cell. With two guys at 1-1. With a Drew victory at SummerSlam, with a Punk strap match victory in Berlin, and it not being about championships anymore. Now it being about two guys that want to end each other. Two guys who in the last 2 weeks have made it abundantly clear that they don't really want to step in Hell in a Cell. That their families have told them, please don't go back in there. And they've both been in there before. Not at this level. Both of them have gotten in there in feuds that it didn't warrant a Hell in a Cell match. I don't think Punk and Taker should have been in Hell in a Cell. That just wiped Punk away. I don't think Drew and Randy Orton should have been in Hell in a Cell. But the timing of when it was in the year is why it happened. This, to me, I don't think Edge and Finn should have been in Hell in a Cell. Edge and Seth had that great Hell in a Cell match. It was warranted because of everything that Seth had done to Edge. What's happening now, though, is one of the best ways of getting to a Hell in a Cell match. I would say. It's one of the best stories that is leading to a Hell in a Cell match because of how personal it is. Both men now, in the last 2 weeks, have promised blood. You're going to deliver on that promise. So that entire conversation that we had on this show a couple of weeks ago about blood being back, I think I read the tea leaves correctly. Hell in a Cell is going to be bloody at Bad Blood. Hell in a Cell is going to be bloody at Bad Blood because it's supposed to be. Because this feud warrants it. Because that match warrants it. I did my top 5 Hell in a Cell matches, which you can go back and watch at thewrestlingmatchshow.com. And I put Brock Lesnar Undertaker on there the first time I did a Hell in a Cell match. Because everybody bleeds. Paul bleeds, Paul Heyman. Brock bleeds. Taker bleeds. It is vicious. It is a fight. It is not as a personal of a story as it is between Drew and Punk, but it is two big guys. One trying to defend his yard in Taker and become champion once again. And the young bull, the upstart, the new champion, and Brock Lesnar having to get tested in such a way that he's going to have to fight for his life and beat one of the best fighters in the history of pro wrestling, Undertaker. And he did. And they had an absolute war. And Taker had to bring everything else out that he could. And he's hitting dives. And he's hitting elbows from the top rope. You go back to the greatest Hell in a Cell match for me. The first one at Bad Blood in 1997. Two guys fighting for their lives. But really, Shawn Michaels just trying to survive because of how much he has pissed off The Undertaker. From costing him to the WWE Championship to their Ground Zero match. And Shawn just being overall just a general prick. And getting under the skin of Undertaker. And Undertaker beat him all over that cell. It was violent because it should have been. It was violent because the story had pushed it to that level. Drew and Punk are at that level. They are going to deliver. It is not going to be pretty. It is not going to be anything more than a fight. There shouldn't be. There will not be lockups. soon as that bell rings, they should be trying to kill each other, and they will. I do not know how that can't be anywhere but the main event. I don't. I know Cody and Roman is a big deal. I know they are making it a big deal. I completely understand that, as it should be. It is a massive deal that the two guys who feuded for more than a year to be the guy in the company are tagging up. Not because they want to, not because they really even trust each other. And that is the allure of this match. It is the first time in a long time of will they get along, can they coexist, is a good story. And is not just a stupid crutch of these two guys are facing off at the pay-per-view, so we're going to tag them together against the heel team and see if they can hang in it. Done to death. This is a legitimate, what does a tag look like between these two? How will they work together? What happens after the fact? Which is why I said Friday's segment on that field at Georgia Tech was more than a bad blood build. There's way more to that. There's way more history that's involved with this thing. And they're playing into that history. Now, on any other night, that is the main event. But I don't know how anybody on that card is going to follow what the expectation should be, and that is a bloodbath to culminate a nearly 1 year feud inside Hell in a Cell between two guys who that crowd will be heavily invested in a story that has been told at an extremely high level. I don't know how you go anywhere else with the main event besides that. All I can think of, and Cody and Roman may main event, believe me. That star power may be enough. Do you do Hell in a Cell in the semi-main? You run 9,000 commercials like they do. And the only way you can follow up all of that blood is have Roman and Cody enter back-to-back. That's the thing. You can't follow. I don't think there's any other way to do it. If Cody and Roman is the main, I don't think you could put Hell in a Cell anywhere else on the card. You can't ask Nia, Bayley, or Naomi to follow it. You can't ask Rhea and Liv to follow it. You can't ask Damian and Finn to follow it. You can't. No. But if you want to follow up what is going to be a brutal bloodbath inside Hell in a Cell, I think you do it with big entrances of Roman and Cody. I'd love to know what those conversations are like. I see some of you guys bringing up, well, Cody's going to make a call and Punk's going to make a call. Hey, bro, it's a hell of a problem to have, by the way. Now, will somebody get pissed off if they're not in the main event? Will it be taken as a slight? I don't know. It's a great problem for that company to have. Do we main event with Punk and Drew McIntyre? Or do we main event with Cody and Roman? Oof. Oof. Promoters, companies would beg for that to be a problem. Beg for that to be a concern. And they have it for an October pay-per-view. Not for WrestleMania, not for Royal Rumble, not for SummerSlam, not for Money in the Bank, not for Survivor Series. For Bad Blood in Atlanta. Now, everybody so far I've seen in the chat has said it should be Hell in a Cell. I agree. But we will see. I don't know if that answer's out there. I saw Mike Johnson report on it today and commented that a lot of people were talking about it. No decision has been made yet. And initially it was supposed to be Hell in a... You feel it out. I also think that's part of it. You feel it out a bit. Where are we at with this? What does this feel like on Friday? What does this feel like on Monday next week as we head into the week of the show? We will see. Now, Amethyst just said it should be Roman and Cody's the champion. Oh, okay. All I would say about Cody being the champion, it's not like he's defending his title. And that's why I don't think that matters as much. I am very pro 99% of the time. The top champion main events the show. Comes out second. Nerdy Dude just said it wouldn't be main event. I think people would feel bummed out or burned out after it. All I will say about that is because of the structure of these premium live events, not being that long anymore. What are we on board for right now? Hell in a Cell, Cody Roman, Rhea Liv, Damian and Finn, and whatever the Nia match is going to be against Naomi or Bayley. If I'm correct, that's it, right? That's 5. So it's only a 5-match show. You're not going to burn the crowd out with that. You also have, and this may actually play into their advantage for once, as I have said, a lot of time in between these matches. There's a lot of time to cool things down, to reset for the live crowd, for the commercials, to run a video package or 7. That all helps the idea of saying Cody and Roman can main event this show. They can do that. Because we have Hell in a Cell and blood and all that, and we're going to go end of the match. And then we're going to go to commercial. And then we're going to hype this. And then we're going to go to this. And we're going to go to They can have a gap. And it sounds like Cody's going to get played to the ring by a marching band. You're going to have a chance to reset. If you have that chance to reset, I don't agree with it still, but they can put themselves in a position where it's a bit easier to follow that match because of the star power and the pomp and circumstance of Cody and Roman. When you think about the idea of not putting Cody or Roman in the main, and you put Hell in a Cell in the main, do you then open with Cody Roman? I think people, and I see people mentioning this in the chat, I think people are starting to understand that concept a lot more. That if it's not the main, you'd like to open the show. Perhaps that will be the case. I don't know if I'd open with Cody and Roman. I don't. I think once again, the flip side, I think you could main event Hell in a Cell after Cody Roman. How do you follow Cody Roman? And all of that. And all that drama and entrances and all that. You follow it with a blood feud. That, to me, is a much easier reset of Cole on commentary going, all right, wow, I can't believe this happened with Cody and Roman and and what are they going to do and what's next? But folks, this one is not going to be for the faint of heart. This is a match that has been building all year long. Yes, they've stepped into the ring before, but they have never stepped inside Hell in a Cell with a rivalry this personal. Our main event is CM Punk and Drew McIntyre. Throw out a video package. It would be an easier reset coming off of Cody and Roman to go to Hell in a Cell, because you have the cell come down and the boom, 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 all of that. Like, you can, that's a different feel. Cody and Roman is drama. And what's going to happen? Punk and Drew is violence and brutality. And there would be a feeling, if you put it in the main event, of going, okay, it is the main. They're going to do some shit tonight. It's going to be ugly. It is a big fight feel. A very good point there from the chat. Cody and Roman is only kind of getting rekindled in the last month. Punk and Drew are finishing their story, so it should be at the end. I agree with that. Once again, though, what a spot for them to be in right now, to have those two big matches on an October pay-per-view. Amethyst, thank you for subscribing to the Wrestling Mat. I appreciate that. Dennis, I saw you having some issues with trying to up your subscription, your membership. Please hit us up after the fact. We'll make sure that happens for you. The Wrestling Mat Show at gmail.com. We will take care of that. If not, hit us up on social media. I will make sure we take care of your membership, and I appreciate that. If you'd like to become a member, if you're watching live, just hit the join button down below. Head over to thewrestlingmatshow.com. Go over to the membership there. You can find out how you can be part of it. Brian Barrett Wilson has become a YouTube member, and we appreciate that. If you're listening, by the way, if you're listening to the show on podcast form, we'd love to have you as a member. Okay, so Ralitza, if you could tell me how to say your name, because I know I said it wrong and I didn't try to say. If you give me a phonetic spelling, I want to make sure I say it correctly. So I am a big believer in that as a broadcaster, to be able to say names correctly. I just need a phonetic spelling. If you want to spell it out for me, I will say it correctly, or I will attempt to say it correctly, because I appreciate you being part of the chat here multiple times. As Nerdy Dude also mentioned, get some merch, guys. It looks awesome. And you can do that at prowrestlingtees.com/thewrestlingmat. And if you're a member on any level, you can get a discount on that by heading over to the membership tab at thewrestlingmatshow.com. I went long, so let's save Vince for tomorrow, because I still think that'll be a topic of discussion. We'll get into more of the Vince stuff tomorrow. I will briefly touch on Bronson and Braun. The opening of last night's Raw appeared to be formulaic. And I have said, and I know this is a big Lee Fitting thing going back to months now, hey, let's keep showing the entrances. Let's keep going and showing the timestamps and when they're walking in the building. And they did that, and they did that. And I know that's an NFL thing, an NBA thing, an NHL thing. Here they are coming in the building. Okay. But I thought at times it can get monotonous or repetitive. And last night they gave, here's, by the way, why does nobody walk in with their gear anymore? Why do they walk in with nothing? Like Drew, okay, fine. He was only cutting a promo last night. But like, Jay, where was Jay's gear? Why doesn't everybody walk in with their stuff? I don't know. Small nitpick, not a big deal. But they show the entrances, and then they show Liv and Dom in the lowrider. And they're coming in, and all of a sudden, bodies crash through, and there goes a merch table. And what do we see? It's Braun and Bronson. I saw somebody say this, I think, on Reddit, and I've had this thought before. Braun Strowman, and I mean this in the best way possible, is best presented as a cartoon character in a good way. And there is an element of Bronson and Braun doing Peter Griffin and the Chicken Man the chicken fighting forever. While that's more of a comedy thing, I love the idea that these guys are like, no, I'm going to put the other guy down. Where is he? Let's fight again. Or they've been fighting for a week in between Raws. That's good. That's fun. What the hell are they doing? We're going to break it up. And then they're going to do the match with Miz. And then it gets crazy again. And then they're going to do the superplex spot. And that gets stopped. And then they book exactly what they need to book. Last monster standing. They've broken so many things. They've gone with cars. One of those two is going to have to do something crazy to the other guy and put him down. I know this is, to me, very clearly being built up for Bronson. But it's the best use of Braun Strowman. And it is the best use of how to get Bronson over. And it is going to be another fun pro wrestling match. And completely, it's the most pro wrestling stuff to me. Two massive guys that just want to take the other one down. And last monster stand, I would assume we'll main event next week because they're not going to be on the pay-per-view. And maybe not, but it feels like it. Last monster standing. I love that they did the Godzilla, the King Kong, and walking through. I mean, that's the kind of stuff where it's so pro wrestling. That WWE in its current form with all the production value can take it to another level where it is not, that's not a boxing match. That's not a UFC fight where people have been talking trash. This is two behemoths. And it is a movie. And it is two giant cartoon characters in the best way possible that are just trying to destroy each other and along the way destroy everything else in their path. And here's what we have to do. Someone's got to be put down. I'm excited for that. I think they've hit a home run with that. I think it's one of the best things going in pro wrestling, and it should be a lot of fun next week. And wrestling, while not always, needs to be fun. A lot of the times, it should be fun. Ralitza. Did I get it that time? Ralitza? There, I think I pronounced it correctly, as I see everybody trying to get it right. Thank you for that. Thank you to those who have been with us today in the chat. As always, you can join us at 1 p.m. Eastern or anytime you want at thewrestlingmatchshow.com. We are on weekly or weekdays at 1 p.m. Eastern. If you're listening via the podcast, come on over to thewrestlingmatchshow.com. Make sure you rate, review, and subscribe. If you are watching, listening, whatever, would really help if you could subscribe to the podcast. That goes a long way. Whether you listen to it or watch it, whatever, please subscribe, rate, review, subscribe. It helps. Supporting the show, it's a free way to do so. Become a subscriber here, as some of you have, at thewrestlingmatchshow.com. You can become a member starting at just $2.99. And if you are a member at the Matt Camper level, at the Matt event level, you can join us right there as we're showing it to those of you watching. If you're at the Matt Camper level, $6.99 a month, or at the Matt event level, $24.99 a month. One of those members-only videos is coming your way live on Thursday at 7 p.m. Eastern. We're going to be reacting to the Vince McMahon Netflix documentary. I will talk more about that tomorrow. I don't want to rush through it, but that is going to be, I'll talk about what Vince said and comments and all that and the news. We'll get more into that tomorrow. But we're going to be reacting to the Netflix doc. I'll have watched all the episodes Thursday night at 7 Eastern. So make sure you're ready for that. Be a member so you can be part of that. We will be having some other announcements about what we have for members for the rest of the month. Shout out to producer Dom because Nerdy Dude called for it. Great job as always today by him. And a great job by all of you in the chat. Make sure you are following us on social media at WrestlingMatt23 on Instagram and Twitter. By the way, if you're at that Matt event level, we connect with you there. We'll follow you. We'll talk to you there. Make sure you're following our social media. Make sure you are with us each and every weekday at 1 p.m. Eastern. Comment down below on what you think should be the main event of Bad Blood. if you're watching after the fact. Subscribe to the podcast, subscribe to this show, and come back tomorrow because I'll be here to talk about wrestling even more tomorrow and every weekday at 1 p.m. Eastern right here on the Wrestling Mat.